let's go through some charts, shall we? I'm looking at Vicky's journal. Something I wanted to talk about. Note to myself. Now, this is a great thing that, you're journaling. That's the most important thing. If you don't keep a journal, and if it's not online, two things will happen. You will not know what you have been doing. So if you were doing it well, you probably know it through your account statement. But if you're doing bad, you won't know where you're going wrong. And in other case, even if you wanted to know why you're doing good, you won't be able to tell. You just say, it's good. And the other thing is that if you want to get better, I won't be able to see. Others won't be able to see, so nobody will be able to comment. Not that we are getting a lot of comments, because it's not a very busy forum, is it? At 3 losses, this is not a great start to this new batch of M15. However, I did learn something this morning. So my suggestion, I looked at pairs that are in our time zone. Yes, so this is the difference. If you trade the hourly, 4-hourly, daily charts, that is swing trading. So your trade would probably go through multiple sessions. And especially if you're trading the 4-hour or the daily chart, it's inside it a lot of the about 3 or 4 sessions in it. Let's say 3 sessions. So you don't really need to worry about if you're on a daily chart, especially because all the sessions are in it. On the 4-hour chart, there are a couple of candles that might be kind of low volume candles. That happens between Asian session for the pairs that don't move during Asian session. But when you come down to the world of, so the hourly chart is the chart that has hits 2 feet on both worlds, in both worlds. It can also be traded as a swing trading time frame, and it can also be done as an intraday. But if you drop anything below the hourly, it is purely intraday trading. So you have to do session wise. And although Forex is a 24-hour session, but we know that volume changes, the activity in the market changes from session to session. So not every Forex pair will move in all sessions, but most of the pairs, majority of them, almost all of them, will move between the European session and the US session, and especially when both Europe and US session are at the same time, which is the US Open. So if you jump into the world of intraday trading, then you have to time your entries and setups with the relevant session time. So if you are in, let's say, Australia, New Zealand, anywhere around that area, China, all the East, then obviously there are pairs that belong to that region, like the Australian dollar, like the Kiwi and the yens. So the busiest and the heavily traded pairs can move around there, and they will move when the banks who have the most money or trade the most, or the exchanges. Well, there are no exchanges in Forex anyway, but it's to do with banks. The Tokyo session, which is 2 a.m. here in the UK, that is where things seems to move, and you can check your charts. So if that is what it is, then you can go for dollar yen and euro yen. Most probably dollar yen is better because the euros are closed at the moment, but the dollar yen, and you could have the Australian dollar yen, right? So both of the currencies are from that region, and then you have the New Zealand dollar. So even if you have those three and you target them, they could give you moves. during that time, but not all the time. Now, you call this a beauty, and I have a huge problem with that, because how is this a beauty? Is it a beautiful move? That's the most important thing. In Forex trading, or in any trading, we do want to catch the moves. Yes, we do. But we need to have a system that allows us to catch those moves. And from experience, I can tell there isn't any system with which you will be able to catch all the moves. So all the systems will have these periods where they miss those moves. So if you're looking at the Australian dollar M15 chart, although it moved those 3 or 4 candles around there, it broke out. And that is the point I was making. It did break out, but it was not a setup. So it could be a good move, but not a setup. Can't call it a beauty. I'm going to bring in the chart and then talk about this a little bit more. So this is the Australian dollar chart. And this is where you posted the picture. This here. And the beauty was just that. Beauty ended. It didn't go anywhere. Why? Because it was a strong up and this was a correction, not a beauty. So let's go to the hourly chart. I'm just going to put a box here. So if you look at the hourly chart, it was a strong 3 up and this was a corrective wave 4. That same day later on, the wave 5 happened. And the next day, it did not move. Let's go to the M15 again. So here, even if it moved, so if you came back, first you said, oh, missed the beauty here, then wouldn't you call this, oh, missed this beauty? No, this was against the rules. Just like this was against the rule. There was no 3 and 4. So this was not a setup. This is not a setup. Move is great, not a setup. Where was it a setup? It was a setup on the H1. Here, it was a setup on the M15. Probably not in your time, but a pretty good setup. Here, you won't be able to take it because the box was big. Then you waited. If you took this, probably you had a small rent. Or if you had your stop loss here, you probably didn't have a rent and you caught all that. But if you waited here, this is a fantastic tight box. Then you had a 20 pip stop loss and a nice huge move. Could have taken 6R from this. But if you just trailed the box, let's suppose, then you took about 197 pips. But this is probably, now this is the beauty. This is a beauty. If you miss this, around Tokyo Open it happens. If it happened here and you missed it, you missed your setup. But if you miss this because you were sleeping, you didn't miss it. That's not called a miss. This is what you could have taken from here. And you would have taken at least 1R from this, trailing the box. Or if you had a target around here, then you'd have that target. So this is the one that you could have taken in your session during your daytime. Let me see if I can go to, so if you go to the M15 chart, sometimes it moves during your Asian sessions. This is Tokyo Open. You can see nice lovely 3, 4, and then if you entered here after this, you have a 18 stop loss. Nice lovely 2R done easily. Otherwise you could have entered here. This was not really a good setup. No cross of 0 line. Now this was not really a good setup. It did move nicely. It is a 3-4 and it can be taken, but this is not the one that we take because the purple is mingling around here. It's not really a nice clean 3. Over here, so you see almost close to the 0 line, and in your time you could have taken this. Iffy because the box is big. This was tricky. Over here, beautiful setup 1. They do happen. They do happen. They happen less often during Tokyo session, but they do happen. Let's take another example. Something that is a cross. So let's say a Kiwi yen. Look at it. What a beautiful setup here. Let's go to the M15 chart. Kiwi and yen should move in your time. This wouldn't be a good setup, but here it will be good. That will be probably before, just before the European session. So if you had a nice 3 here, yeah, this one probably moved and probably stopped you out here or here. But if you were still watching later on, it had something. But let's suppose you took it here and just allowed your ATM to do its thing. So you had a 16 stop loss, went up, so you would have got out break even on this one. And if you look at it later, then you probably had a good trade. Let's look at Australian dollar yen if you can find it. So that's the 7th of April, Australian dollar yen. Goes up here, probably break even for you. Same thing like the New Zealand dollar yen. Same picture, but this is much smoother. During the day it was pretty good. Because yen is a volatile pair, so if you mix the two, during its time it could move. So here we have some sort of something. Probably can catch this, but not really a setup 1, it's a setup 2. Just randomly going. So this would be a nice setup for you. Big box. The only way to trade this would be to say, okay, I have my red dot here. So I put my PO here and my stop loss would be above the red dot. So that would be around 50 pips. And if you did that, you probably had even 4 R's possible. Because, you know, it's Australian dollar yen and it's been moving like crazy. And if you are back testing and something like this happens, just go to the indicators, go to the box, inputs, and add a 0 to it. Now, sometimes if you have 20,000, probably you'll feel the MT4 goes laggy. If that is the case, then change it to 10,000 or 5,000. I'll just change it to 20,000. It works for me. And this allows you to have the box all the way to about 20,000 boxes or something. This was a very nice setup on this, right at London Open. So you have a nice clean 3 yesterday. So the famous setup, or the M15 proper setup ones, have a very strong wave 3 on day 1 yesterday, and then they kind of go sideways during the Asian session. So if a setup goes during Asian session, you can't call it technically a famous setup. It's not a famous setup. Famous setup formation is this. Now this one has a whole day of wave 3. It doesn't have to be whole day. It could be the Asian session. It could be the European session and then go sideways. Not the Asian session, sorry. The US session. But the around after US session and the Tokyo session, the Asian session, up to early hours of, or even before, an hour before Frankfurt Open, it must form a box like this. This is a little bit jagged, but nothing in real world is perfect. But here then you have a very tight box, and then at London Open it goes. This is a famous setup. I'll go to the H1 and see. So you can see that when you are scanning through your charts, just go through the H1 charts, and you want to see if today was a strong trend day. So if today was a strong trend day, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to check at, let's say, an hour before Frankfurt Open or at Frankfurt Open to see if the Asian session was a wave 4, and in this case it was. So you drop to M15 and you see a big box, and then not big box, sorry, a sideways market. Now if this entire box was, imagine if this didn't happen and it was like this, it would be even more tasty. But we get this range anyway, so you get a blue dot, 3, 4, everything ready, go long here. That is what you need to do. So you need to catch a setup like this, or shift this over and probably have this session, probably have this box around here, and then it will break out during your Tokyo session. Anything else, not a beauty in my books.